and good morning and an awesome morning it is. Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am, yes, I am the master wealth builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business with this Think and Grow Rich philosophy. And we want to welcome you to another episode of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind with the international with the International Mastermind Association. I am just so excited today. I'm a little giddy, and you'll understand why as we go on. It is a special honor for me today, along with our co hosts, which I'll bring them on, to talk about as we wrap up a special principle. And really, it is the first principle of the 13, which is the principle of desire. But the question for you today is, what is it that you desire? You see, when Napoleon Hill was blessed with a son being born with no ears, he had an entirely different desire. And guess what? It was not about the money. No, 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 no. It was not about the money. It was a desire for his son to hear. And so, whatever it is that's your desire, our desire today is to help you have a process, a system by which to achieve that desire. So, as we get this party started, I want to bring on our co host today, none other than first, we'll go with, yes, Galen Bingham. Good morning, Galen. How are you this morning?
Fantastic. Good morning. Good morning. Ready to get at it again. This is one of the more favorite times of the week. I don't know how you inspired me to get up at so early on Saturday morning. It must be the commitment that we have to helping groups really prosper with this process. And I love the area of the book that you focused on because so often we have people that will come as part of our group, and they are just focused on the money. And the thing that this philosophy helps you to understand is that, yeah, money is important. Money can be a part of riches, but there are 12 different aspects of riches that this process works for, whether it's about helping you to achieve a positive mental attitude, a sound physical, helping you to have sound physical health, harmony with human relationships, freedom from fear, hope of achievement, capacity for faith, willingness to share one's blessings, a labor of love, open mind to all subjects, self discipline, capacity to understand people, or financial security. This process works. And as we try to help our groups be successful in our individual masterminds, it's important that we stay mindful of that. And so I can't think of a better person to lead that conversation than you, Miss Ann, and had an opportunity to meet our guest at the annual meeting. She is just a ball of energy, and I can't wait to have her be part of this conversation as well.
A ball of energy to say the least. But before we bring her on and talk about her, let's bring on our other co host, Dr. Peter James. Good morning.
Good morning, good morning,
Good
good morning. Good morning, all of you individuals who have such passion and desire inside of you. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, excited to be here this early Saturday morning to talk, think, and grow rich with you all. And I love what Ann McNeil has started off talking about, how despite the title of this book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talked about the the, the the disability of his son and how it helped, how he had a passion, how he had a desire for his son. And what that how that really spoke to me was the desire doesn't just have to be money. So what else are you desiring right now that you can go deep in on, to really write it down, to really um, practice these 6 steps and put them out so that you can accomplish them, so you can have these positive outcomes in your life. And I love that about Think and Grow Rich, that this richness is not just wealth from a financial perspective, but it bleeds over into so many other facets of our life. So I'm excited to dive into that today. And we definitely have such a distinguished guest. I'm excited.
All right. But before we get to our distinguished guest, I have to set this up, right? And when Napoleon Hill talked about his changed world, he also connected with his wife, who was his mastermind partner. He also connected with many others in his tribe that became partners with him as he pursued his son being able to hear. Well, our special guest today is one of very few people who started masterminding with me at a very early age, I'm talking about 10, 11, and now we're talking over 20 years later at least. And this program is about the accountability and the power of a mastermind group, the impact it has on you individually, but also the group collectively. And so, with those thoughts in mind, please help me welcome our special guest this morning, Miss Kiana Thomas, as I share with you a little bit about her bio, and then we're going to talk about our 13 steps, principles to riches, and we're going to come back and have a phenomenal organizational conversation. So, good morning, Kiana. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I am great and I am beyond excited to be here.
All right, let me talk a little bit about you as we bring you, in to talk a little bit more about yourself. Kiana and I actually met, and I'll give you my interpretation. She can give you everything else that's in her bio that she wants you to know. But since we do have that long time relationship, we met when I knew Kiana's mom before Kiana was actually born, because her mom and her grandmother were very good friends of mine. Well, her mom still is, and her grandmom that has imparted so much into Kiana has transitioned. But Kiana has been a force. That's really what I'd like to call you, Kiana, a force to be reckoned with as a part of our youth masterminders. And she has done so well in starting and running her own business in the last few months that it really begins to remind me about the power of that word that says that you train up a child the way that they should go, but when they grow old, they will not depart
Yes.
Kiana Thomas, and I'll read this for our listeners and be professional with that. Kiana Thomas Dollyah Deering is an up and coming African American author in a lane all her own. She has a unique skill set that allows her to tell ethical stories through poetry in a way that little fawns. Now, Kiana, I'm going to have you tell us a little bit about your story, and then we're going to go to our 13 steps. But what I want to talk about and make sure that our listeners who have children and grandchildren bring them into this conversation, because the International Mastermind Association is the guiding standards, if you will, for how to run and operate an effective mastermind group. Kiana Thomas is an example of that for children. We've had a lot of people on our program who are adults who mastermind. But when you talk about a child that has been in this book for a long time and has been with, like my granddaughter who decided to come into the picture herself this morning. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Roger. Surprise is surprise. But it's all good, because she's masterminding too at 5. And actually, she hosts. Yes, she does host on Sunday along with Peter's daughter. Your daughter's how old, Peter, is your daughter?
She is 13 years old.
13. Okay, so we're going to spotlight Kiana, but Kiana, if you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself that you want the audience to know.
So, hello. My name is Kiana Thomas, but I go by Dollyah Deering, which is my pen name. And I own Fawn Fables LLC, and this is a children's book company that I started. I want to say about maybe 5 months ago, roughly, really pretty much 4. And I write stories for kids to teach them how to celebrate their differences together, critically think, and then also to understand that their voice and who they are what matters most as they're interacting and navigating the world. Now, I do this, and a lot of the principles behind what I'm teaching are being derived and then in my way turned into something that kids, and I call them fawns or children, can understand. And that is the principles that I've been learning and the things that touch me from the book Think and Grow Rich. I think that as you go in and you impart these, like we were talking about, like Ann was talking about before, is as you impart these things in children at a young age, they're things that they won't deviate from. So I've taken those principles and I continue to take the principles that I'm learning again from Think and Grow Rich, try to turn them into stories and version of stories that children can understand, and then help parents start those conversations, help them continue to reinforce those principles that are taught throughout the book Think and Grow Rich. But yeah, that's my story. I write poetry and different things just on the side, but mainly Fawn Fables is what I represent.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you. I'm sorry. I was just going to ask you to come on, Peter, and share with us those 13 principles. So
I'm 13 steps ahead of you there, McNeil.
thank
So,
you.
so thank you so much there, Kiana, for giving us a little bit of insight. What I love about what you've said already is that what resonates is that we don't have to be adults to embrace Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
These principles can be shared with the youngest of us in some form or fashion. So those of you who are watching right now, I encourage you to think about young people that you may have in your life or your family that can be spoken to about Think and Grow Rich. You can have a conversation around Think and Grow Rich, and maybe not even at this level as we're getting ready to look at this video, but at their level. How can they interpret desire? How
Yes.
can they interpret some of these principles at their level? Because you think they're too young, you have no idea how it can impact them even at
Yes.
that age. So without further ado, let's take a look at these principles in depth.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us. Use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Are muted. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So when you think about, for each of you, when you think about the 13 principles, you think about your desire and the fact that this is the beginning of the year. We're wrapping up this principle of desire. We want to encourage you, chat with us if you're listening live or in the future. Chat with us and let us know what is your one desire. It does not have to be related to money. And then in that, also tell us who's holding you accountable for that accountability, because as IMA, International Mastermind Association, we are the standard for accountability for mastermind groups with individuals in them, of course. But we also want to encourage you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our goal is to hit 100 subscribers by the end of February, the 28th. And so if you would please comment, like, share the show, but also subscribe. And if you have not subscribed, please do so now by going to YouTube. And if you have subscribed, let us hear from you by putting in the chat, subscribe, just the word subscribe. All right. If you would do that, we continue to greatly appreciate that. Now, also ask 3 people to do the same thing. But as we prepare to go to the principles and discuss those, we talked a little bit about Napoleon Hill and the desire he had. Kiana came on and talked about her desire. What I'd like to share very, very briefly is when I began to read the book and then began to share it, as I prepared for the program today, I had a major aha, and we want each of you to put your aha in the chat. Well, I had a major aha when Napoleon Hill talked about how he basically lied to his son by telling him that he would live a normal life and he would learn to hear and to speak like normal people. And as I began to think about Kiana, really thinking about you and coming on today, I realized that the children that we talked with and met with and took all over the country as we traveled, whether it was the MasterMind, whether it was the investment club and going to New York and all of these different things we did, as we continue to live in this book and these principles, I then began to realize that we each do that in our lives. But are you telling yourself something that's called an affirmation that will positively impact your future and the future of your family members? So what I'd like to do is come back and have you come back, Galen and Peter, and we're going to have a round robin conversation this morning with you, Kiana, because I really would like to, I'm getting a little feedback, but I really would like to have you kind of go back in your memory banks as a young person when we would meet and just talk about, because we did not know what we did not know back then.
Right.
And as we began to just do nothing but have meetings, because that's really all we knew, right? This was many years before the annual meeting and all of the big things and things that we used to do. Can you share with our audience? And then for Galen and for Peter, what I'd like to do is think you both have children and you have a mastermind accountability as a family. But if you can share with us one major aha from your childhood, Kiana, that had a positive impact from one of these principles. I know we're talking about the desire principle. It may be another principle, because our desire here, and we talked about this a little bit before the show started, but our desire here also is to connect this philosophy with individuals in your age group, whether they're called millennials or Z or X or whoever it is. So I think the more that the young people, like my granddaughter here, listening intently, and she's already being impacted because she knows she's in the book and she's processing, oh wait, grandma, I can end up like Miss Kiana.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things, and I'm going to stick in the principle of desire, because for me, that is the biggest, that's one of the biggest things that influence me. All the other steps are amazing, but they, to me, from my life, they don't even come into fruition until you have desire. So I do want to say I shook off some nerves from earlier. So I want to get back to one of the things so you can understand why I say desire. What I didn't highlight is that I have published books, but I did this in a matter of 2 months. I had 4 books published because of a desire that I learned as I've been reading the book. So I want to make sure you understand my desire was so strong that I was able to publish 4 separate books. Now, when I go back to my childhood and discuss and tell you more about desiring, one of the aha moments from the desire chapter is, do not accept your circumstance as an obstacle and then use it as an alibi. This is huge from my childhood, because growing up around, I want to call her Aunt Ann so bad, but Ann McNeil, that is the principle, without me knowing that sentence, that I was forced to always implement. There was never an excuse. Oh, I didn't do it because, and then I would name something that was already a given. The circumstance is already a given. So for you to tell me, oh, I didn't do it because I was up late at the end of the day, you chose to be up late. This was still the task. Why didn't you get it done? Why didn't you make room to get these things done? So when you're growing up in in an environment where each week, even though we were young, we are being held accountable for reading principles, for interacting, for goals that we set and we know we can attain, you start to realize no matter what circumstance you're in, if you really want the result and the goal that you have set, then there's no excuse for not setting it, especially if you're going to use a circumstance that existed when you set the goal. So I'm saying that to say, when you, as parents, and for me, having that parental influence that says, regardless of what situation I'm in, this is the task that I've been set out to complete. And I know that I'm going to be held accountable and I need to complete it. Your mind starts to work different. You start to your mind naturally starts to try to figure out, okay, I can't use this as an excuse. So this is what I need to do to get past that. One of the things that is my biggest influence, and actually she's now in the mastermind group with me now directly, and I'm trying to get her back, is Julie Johnson. She's also someone that went on a trip with us, that traveled with us for investments and learning things like that as a child. And I did this again with Ann McNeil. A part of doing this, though, we had to, at a young age, I think it was $1,400, we had to raise on our own. We were not allowed to have our parents pay for this. I'll never forget. I don't even know if she remembers this, but we were told that we all, her daughter included, Ione, my cousin, we all had to raise our own for $1,400. So at this time, we were trying to go to a BET conference for entrepreneurs. So at this time, we're looking like, how do we each raise our own $1,400? We read the books. We knew what desire was. We were all first to report to her a plan by which this was going to happen. So once we did, we would go out and we would try. We were just asking people, and it wasn't working. I'll never forget this conversation I had with her. I said, I asked somebody for $100 and they told me no. And I was so upset because $100 is just a piece of paper. Why can't they just give it to me? And I'll never forget her looking at me and saying, why should they? And I was so upset because I was like, because I asked for it. Like, I don't understand. I'm a kid. I asked for $100. They have it. And she taught me then, she was like, but you have to prove to them why their $100 is worth giving to you. So now I've got me, my friend Julie, and Ione, and we are coming up in our own minds with our own schemes, plans. How do we present to them that giving us this $100 is worth it? Giving us $50 is worth it? Because Ione had already done the math that we should be attacking the 100 because that's only 14 people. If we attack 50, now we're up to 28. So we were trying to figure out, how do you get this money? And so I'm saying all that to say, when you have those type of principles, and we all actually got our 1,400 and exceeded it. It was a wonderful experience. But when we were put through that, I remember crying. I remember time running out. There's a lot of things that I remember from that age being such a hard thing to do, but making it, getting the calls from my mom, from her saying, hey, this person has actually contributed this amount of money. We actually each hit our goal and we're going past it, but they didn't let us know initially. So it was that type of environment and that pressure from that experience that was so awesome. And we ended up going to the Gaylord Hotel in I want to say that's Nashville, that's Tennessee. And it was my first time ever being in a hotel like that or seeing anything like that at a young age. And it felt so rewarding because in my mind, I had done this for myself. I had done this. Like nobody else in my school were having these experiences except for me, Julie, and my cousin. I didn't have any other peers that were coming back and saying they had traveled to a hotel like that had learned about taking over franchises from Wendy's and different things. And how do you build this at that age? So that alone has pushed me like further in my life than I could ever explain. And these principles were coming from the book because we were required to read the book at that age. And so I would say setting goals, understanding the principle of desire, and knowing, number one, that I did not want to be left behind. That was one of the biggest things that pushed my desire as well. I knew that based on what I was told, I wasn't going if I didn't raise my own 1,400, and I refused to be the one left behind. That wasn't okay for me. So I just think that if you have children, no matter what age, if there's things that they desire and they want, if you start to force them at younger ages to accomplish it and desire it for themselves and figure out how they would get it, you will find that they are a lot more capable, and the confidence from being able to accomplish that pushes them throughout life. I kid you not, because for me at that time, $1,400 was something I didn't even know what it looked like. I had never even held it in my hand, but I knew I needed it. So having that experience, every other challenge after that, regardless if I was reading a book or not, became in my mind that type of situation. This is the goal. What is the step to get there? The circumstance can't be an excuse for not getting there. How do I make this happen? How do I make this person feel like I'm worth them giving me their $100?
Listen, we want to thank all of our listeners in the chat. It is blowing up. Abundant Health, of course, Aretha, Johnny Lloyd, Teresa Davis, so many of you. Thank you so very much for chiming in. But I have to go to my co-host because I told them when we were discussing who was going to host today, I said, listen, Kiana can do the show all by herself and all backseat. And again, because this is so powerful, and I don't know if our guests will get it. And regardless of when you're listening to this, when you look at and listen to this podcast, this Mastermind Live, you're looking at 20 years as a young person. Now, I'm 40 plus years as now an older person, but I was a little bit older than Kiana when I read the book in 1979. So let me go to Galen first and then to Peter.
Yeah, so I think again, your story is a great example of how you were absolutely just saturated with this material. And so my question, especially since you work with younger kids, extremely young kids, what do you do as the leader of of your group? What do you do to saturate your members with the standard that you've created, the standard that you lived by when you were a young kid, saying, being told there is no excuse for doing what you're committing to do, for doing what's important to you? What do you do to maintain that culture, that saturation of a standard for your mastermind group?
The first thing that I do, especially dealing with youth, is, like we said, we call it desire from the book, but in sales you call it buy-in. I figure out their buy-in. What is it that you want? Why are you sitting here? Why are you working with me today? Did your parents force you here? Why are you here? Once I figure that out, if it is not something that has to do with them and they're doing it for someone else, I remove it. So the first thing is I do, okay, you're here now. You have to be. This is the circumstance. But if you could have anything, what is it? Based on what they deliver and they give you that buy-in, you now have what you can help them form into desire. You help them understand why this is important to them, and then you make it attainable. You let them know you can do this and this is the first attainable possible step to this. And then as you do that and they accomplish that first low-hanging fruit or little goal, it feels good. That becomes a celebration, and you celebrate with them. You highlight them in that moment. And once they feel that from you and they've gained your respect because you've highlighted them for accomplishing a goal that they wanted, you've got their attention, and then you build on that principle and you stay consistent. It is your job to be in tune to every time that they make a success so that you can celebrate with them, so they can look to you for that until they learn how to celebrate on their own. And you just become someone that they want to now live up to your standard and be consistent. Again, learn this from dealing with Ann McNeil as a youth.
Yeah. I love the way that you've approached this, because so very often, even as I deal with adult leaders, we have a tendency to think, well, the objective is obvious. Clearly, they're going to be as motivated about this as I am. And I love the fact that you're not taking that for granted. You're actually doing the work. And as I say very often, our jobs as the leader is not to deliver results. Our job as the leader is to create the environment where our people want to deliver the results.
Yes.
And so I think that carries through and quite possibly might be some of the fuel behind your success. Dr. Peter, I know you've got to be enjoying some of this leadership talk as well. What are your thoughts and what are your questions?
Yeah, just some good stuff. So first of all, Kiana, we have to have you back because I got too much stuff to think about and questions and everything like that. But here's something that I'm really stuck on right now. and this is in about desire and how it plays out in our lives. When we're young, when we're kids, our parents and even our minds think we can do anything whatsoever. We watch TV, we read books, and we really are able to dream and run away with our dreams. Um, Sometimes we have to pull our kids back a little bit because the things they'll get into are a little bit dangerous. But as they get older, we begin to pull them back a little bit too much. And as I say, that box becomes a little bit smaller and smaller. And then it's almost like, well, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. The dreaming, the the goals kind of shrink a little bit more. My passion, my desire is to, as I go get older, especially, is to open that box back up more and more and more, because we can do anything that we put our minds to. Again, if we can dream it, it can come to fruition. And I'm really passionate about that, and I really believe that's what this desire. What does that look like in your life? Because what I heard from you earlier there, Kiana, was those 4 books. People on the outside, I'm sure, would say, "Oh, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's, you just try to kill yourself." But it sounds like that box is open for you. Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that?
So, to be fair, when you get in this book and your mindset is right, and I say that because you have to really want this. When you get in this book and you want this, and that window to possibility is open, when you've decided you're not going to accept the alternative, which is to do what other people say is possible, but you're going to open up your mind and say, I'm going to trust these principles and listen and say, whatever is possible, whatever I want is possible. There is a zone that you get in. There is a hold that it takes over you. And when this happens, your inspiration will leap and bound and move in ways that you don't almost recognize yourself. And it's so powerful that other people start to recognize you differently. And I'm saying that to say, you start off by understanding what desire really is and attaining the idea that it is possible. You open the door to say it is possible. And when you go back to working with groups and working with, like we said, youth, is making sure that they are constantly understanding what is possible for them individually. There's so much when you get in as a kid, you try to get in to being popular, you're trying to get into be accepted. It's a part of that. And then you listen to, okay, this is what you can't do, so on and so forth. But as long as the conversation and the possibility and the way that they live on their daily life with basic choices is opening the doors to say, this is my goal for the day. I've accomplished this. Constant discussions about, okay, what did you want to do today? Was today fruitful based on your goals? And if not, if they're down, why? How do we overcome this? How do we not internalize this negative? Those constant conversations, those constant reminders of what is possible and how to overcome keeps that window open. And then constantly pouring them and reinforcing it with a book like this will make it where, again, that they're unstoppable. They become leaders naturally because they understand and accept these principles. And I think that's the same thing that happened with me. There's so many people I listen to and authors I follow and actually follow me that are saying, it took me a year just to write my book. And I said, in 2 months, I had 4 published. And they're like, oh, well, they probably aren't good. And then I let them read them. And they're like, you did this in 4 months. And I'm like, this I did because it was a desire of mine. I was in a zone and I had become what I thought about. I didn't think about anything else but publishing these books. So all day, if I had a spare moment, this is what was occupying my mind. And because it was occupying me so much, it moved me to move. And so I went to the next step. How do I get past this? How do I simultaneously work at this? When your time is forced on that, and that's all you're thinking about, what you can accomplish in a short amount of time is going to rival anything that people who could be experts in your field can do, because you've decided that I am going to become this thing. I am going to do this. I had to be an author. I needed to understand what that meant. I had to get these stories out. The importance of who read them was too great for me to lax. So I didn't sleep as much as I probably should, but I got it done. And so that is the principle that I work super hard, even in my first book, Worth the Wood, to enforce in children. That is my first principle, that you chop a tree because it's worth the wood. You are worth the wood, the effort to swing that axe repeatedly, day after day, because the wood that will come from that will be so fruitful that all of that you went through to get it, it won't even matter. And it'll have built you in a way that you now know what to do with all that wood that you've gotten. That is the same way I feel like the principle of money works and what I'm learning in the book.
Wow. Wow. And McNeil, I could do this all day. You better take the baton back. You're on mute.
Mini me. Listen, I want to give kudos and thanks also to so many people that are chiming in from your past and abundant health. Her daughter also was on that journey with so many of you back then. Dr. Raquel, Imelda, so many of you joining in this morning. But listen, I cannot go any further without doing two things, and I'm going to come to the annual meeting. But one of the things that I do know that happened for you that we've not talked about yet is the fact that you re-engaged with a new mastermind group in the Clarity Mastermind. Yes. So we're going to spotlight you because your mastermind leader is on here, and she would have my head if I did not acknowledge Mr. Retha Dennis,
Yes.
who has been with us, gosh, forever, and the impact of your re-engaging with us as a part of the Clarity group and the impact that Clarity group has had on you in the last 4 months. So Brittany, you can spotlight her, and then we're going to come back and talk about the annual meeting.
So I'm so excited to give these roses. Re-engaging in Clarity Mastermind, coming back and realizing that I needed this again. I needed to revamp my life and where it was going. I was placed in a group from Clarity Mastermind with Miss Doretha, Miss Valencia, and a few others, but these are my core group at that time when I first came in. When I first got in, as soon as we jumped in, they were very, very big on both being welcoming, but letting me know, holding me accountable. As soon as I jump into the group, Miss Doretha says, "Hey, I'm Doretha. How are you doing? Let's pull up your survey." Literally in that order. There was no small talk. We pull up the survey, and I have to go through with her what I have, why, what is my check, what isn't my check, so on and so forth. I have never been so lovingly corrected as I went through something and held accountable. I realized immediately this woman is not playing, and this is serious. As I went through my survey with her, wait a minute now. So is this something you want to change? Why haven't you changed? And it was just questions and prodding that I needed to begin. This is my first meeting and interaction with her in a breakout group. So by the time I was told about when we meet on Thursdays, even though I didn't know what to come prepared with, I wanted to come prepared with something. This now leads me into figuring out, okay, I knew how to, basically go through the book. I was reading it. What do I need to come to show this group that I'm serious? I really want to earn her respect because I enjoyed the way she interacted with me. As I did that, meet Ms. Valencia, and I start to listen to what they've accomplished and how heavy they're holding themselves accountable in my first meeting, I could not be the one that's showing up because I'm very competitive. I was not going to be the one that showed up the next meeting and not be prepared. This continued throughout and continues throughout my interaction with my mastermind group. Because of that love, support, push, and accountability, I have been able to accomplish so much because number one, I know that I can't come back to every meeting singing the same song. That's not the way our progressive group works. No matter what is going on, we need to know, did you accomplish your goal? And if you did not, what do we need to do to change that? We have real discussions in our group. We talk about life. We talk about everything. And then we bring it back to, so how does that relate to the end goal? How do you get back on track if you feel like you're not on track? If you did not accomplish what we set out and said you were accountable for accomplishing last week, what came in the way and how do we avoid that happening 2 weeks in a row? I think that type of leadership, that type of interaction, and letting it being catered to what my gifts are, because she listens and they both listen. My group, we all listen. If you tell us that this is your goal and this is what you're enhancing, we want to know what other things are you involved in to continue to grow that skill. You can't come into our group telling us that you want to work in real estate, and every time you show up to the meeting, you got more information on other things. If these things are not in line with your goal, our first question to you is, let's go back and look at your desire, because I think it is off. Let's go back and strengthen where it is you're trying to go, because your reports are not lining up with the goals that you told us that you wanted to accomplish. It's like that. And I love that. I am super protective. We have conversations all the time. I do not like missing meetings. I do not play about that. Because I understand I'm going to get the nurturing, the accountability, the strength, the resources that I need. As soon as I tell her I'm struggling with something, she said, well, hold on, let me look here. And she'll look and see if she knows somebody. I can reach out to this person. This is what we're going to do. I want you to read this, though, before we do. And then I'm going to bring you back and see what we can do. Always a plan. So I don't want to take up the whole meeting, but I want to say the love and the encouragement and the action in my group that we are held accountable for. When we meet weekly and then we send out text reminders about what you're held accountable for. Hey, ladies, it's Sunday. We meet again on Thursday. How much towards your goals have you gotten done? These are the things you remember that you're accountable for. I love that. So, yes, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but love our group.
I mentioned that because as people are listening to the fact that you published 4 books, you had not published 1 book before the group.
I didn't even know how to make a book.
Okay, hold that thought. I just want to say that because I want to make the connection between these two things. I am a mastermind accountability for groups. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but this is what it looks like and what is possible if you have a desire. That's the other key. Again, I wasn't sure if you were raising your hand or just okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to Galen and Peter, and then we're going to, if there are questions or comments, and then we're going to come back to you, Kiana, to talk about the annual meeting that we just experienced last month. Galen, then Peter.
Yeah, again, I'm just really, really starting to fall in love with how you are taking on this role of leader as being really, really important, because these things don't just happen. When did you identify the fact that these successes don't just happen? There has to be a strong leader to keep the group focused on the priorities that they say that they're trying to accomplish. When did you first realize that, and how did that realization help you achieve some of the success that you're enjoying now?
So my background is sales and in apartments, and I started off by running a team. And so one of the biggest things that I learned, and again, these of course are going to come from the book, was when I wanted to do things, I had an intention, I had a purpose, and I knew how to get things done. And when you're selling to someone, you can't do anything until you create buy-in. You're not going to get it unless you make room. They make room for you mentally for your sale. You're not getting anywhere. That's the first thing. Well, when I had to run a sales team, and now I had a bunch of people accountable that represented me to help me reach a goal, that became a thing where now I realize in order to get them to perform on a daily basis, before they even come in, I can't get them to sell to anybody else until I make them make room for me mentally to sell them the vision again the day before we start. So then I had to, every time a team member came in, because I had shifts, I'm dealing with college students, before they can just get on my sales floor, that's not how that worked. I had to come in, I had to inspect you, I had to make sure your mindset was on the sale. You're going to tell me what was the last sale you made before you walked into work, who you're working on, is it a potential, why or not? If it's dead in the water, what are we going to do to get you someone new? We went through that before they even were able to sit down at a phone. When I realized that inventing that vision daily continued to hold them accountable, I realized this is how you lead. They respected me more because they realized that I was going to ask that. They knew before they got to work, if they didn't seem right, we was going to have to figure something out. I learned then, once I started holding them accountable, and I started to realize if I have a salesman that makes 4 sales a week, and I have one salesman that makes 2 sales a week regular, and my 2 sales a week salesman makes 4 sales, and my 4 sales a week salesman makes 2 sales, I commend the 2 salesmen that made the 4, and I check on the 4 salesmen that made the 2, because I'm holding them accountable for them individually and not against each other. It's not about the number. It's about your potential. You did not reach your potential this week. Why? You reach over your potential this week. How? We live in that moment. We figure that out and we become better. When I treated them like that, they started to treat each other like that. They come in and they can tell each other when they're not working at their best. They can tell each other when they're not moving around. Then I realized these same principles can be applied to people everywhere. Everybody somewhere is doing something because they feel like there's a result, even if the something that they're doing is not lining up with the result. In their mind, that's where they're headed. If I can have the ability to help train them and move them in the direction that I want them to go for the common goal I have in mind, then I realize I can change anybody, anything. I can control anything. And so that's kind of when those principles came alive for me, and I was able to then move on to the next step and realize that leadership is service, because I can't get there buying in and figure out what they, unless I'm studying that person. I have to give of me. I've got to give a lot of energy. You got to be really important. So that is how that worked for me.
And then talk a little bit about the annual meeting, because you and I first met each other at this last annual meeting, and would just love to hear your perspective as to the importance of people attending, and maybe once you finish, we can share how they can be ready for the next one.
I will say this. The annual meeting for me was life-changing, as it always is. But I hadn't been to one in a very, very long time. But it is important that you attend, especially if you attend, it is important that you help if you can. To be able to show up, build and set up everything, see how things are put together, and then watch as everybody comes in and transforms and brings their successes, brings their questions, brings all of what their year looked like and who they started off to be and where they are, is amazing in itself. Then it is motivating to realize, number one, that how much networking is available to you. As much as we know we're learning our own worth and value. Some of the things that we do are so second nature when it's our gift. So when you are a person and you want something and you walk into a room full of masterminders, people who are on the same path with so much to offer, and you have a direction you're going, taking advantage and actually shaking hands with sanitizer, because meeting people, interacting, learning their goals, learning people's story, the empowerment and the change that you get in that moment is, you can't put a price on it, number one. Then it also helps urge you and push you in the right direction. So I would definitely encourage people to go. Secondly, the accountability that you see when you're up there and people will put in a hot seat, or people are standing up to share their reason, their triumphs and all of that, also just adds and adds and adds to your value of what you can get from being in a mastermind group. You'd be amazed at what talent and what opportunity is in the same room as you, especially when you're headed in the right direction. So, I mean, just like the 30-day challenge says, knock, seek, ask. Imagine having something that you're working towards and it takes you so long to get to, and you can walk into a room full of people who can make those changes for you with the simple ask. Because you're in their network, because you've already identified from being under the covering that your mindset is right, that you're already a good investment. You're here. That is an amazing, amazing feeling. So I would definitely encourage people to do that.
So in 2023, the dates are January the 6th and 7th, 2023 at the Embassy Suites in Boca Raton on Yamato Road. So you can go to the internationalmasterminders.com and register early So then when we start increasing that price, we're not saying anything. Okay. So, so please do that. And also, I would like to encourage all of you that's interested in being a part of our International Mastermind Association. We call it IMA beta test, whereby we are developing the best practices for the children, for millennials, Kiana's age, and the rest of us, regardless of what area you call yourself. Just imagine what could your family look like 10, 20, 30 years in the future as you live and leave a legacy of how to mastermind for accountability purposes for your goals. So the details are here. You can go to International Masterminders with an s.com/group mastermind. If you are interested, please register. So I'm going to go back around. We're going to start with Dr. James to give his aha moment and how you can reach him and how you can connect with him. Then we'll go to Galen and then you, Kiana. Thanks.
The biggest thing I took away today was there's almost levels of desire, and you can always go deeper.
Yeah.
Deep in order to really extract what you desire, what you want, what your goals and your dreams are. And we oftentimes tell ourselves, and Kiana is a great example of opening that up for herself with the help of a mastermind group, but now able to accomplish what some of us would deem impossible. And that's what I love about this conversation with you, Kiana. It was enlightening on so many different levels. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, the high performance coach, helping you to shift your mindset. Please find me on shiftyourmindset.com or any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames. Galen, what a show, man.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I wasn't surprised. Our guest is absolutely amazing. And this is she just really highlights the importance and the significance of leadership. And that's why I do what I do. My name is Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. You can find me on almost any platform by typing in Galen Bingham. But the most fun way to connect with me is by going to any podcast platform and typing in Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We talk to leaders about what it really takes to be effective. And it's real talk that you can't get anywhere else. I double dog dare you to check us out anywhere podcasts are streamed. I guarantee you're going to get something out of the conversation, just as we did today with our guest. Ms. Ann, back to you.
All right. So, Kiana, if you would share with us how you would like to have people to connect with you, and that would be great.
So on all platforms, you can find me at Dollyah Deering. So it'll be on Instagram. It'll be at DOLLYAHDEERING. That's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. That's where you'll find me there. As well as if you wanted to email me, it would be at Fawn Fables LLC at gmail.com. Again, Fawn Fables LLC at gmail.com, or you can just jump on our website and all my links are there, which is fawnfables.com.
All right. And again, my name is Ann McMillan. I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping to build stronger and better lives and businesses. And if you want clarity in your highest income producing areas of your business and your life, with a desire, you can connect with me by going to annmcmill.com/coaching to be a part of our coaching program called Clarity Mastermind that Kiana has been a part of for the last 4 months when she wrote those 4 books. It has just been a phenomenal program. I want to give you one of my ahas today, Kiana, that you said, I had to become what I thought about. I had to become what I thought about. But also, Kiana, you've blessed me because you are an excellent example of when the book says, train up a child the way they should go, and when they grow old, they will not depart. So, with those thoughts, we want to thank all of our guests for joining. we want to remind you, please comment, like, and share the show. But also, please subscribe to our YouTube and get 2 or 3 others to subscribe, because programs like today, you want to share with your family and friends. And by subscribing, you will get the notifications automatically. That's the value that we bring. So until next week, we want to thank you for joining us. And please remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel, but join us every single Saturday right here on Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. And until then, our guest for next week, you got to come and see Miss Sheila Brazier. And she will be talking about faith. And you don't want to miss that program. All right. So we'll see you next week. And remember, please remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, everybody. Peace.
Bye.